A severe weather marathon is coming to the eastern half of the United States over the next about week, and it's going to bring the risk for all hazards of severe weather, including damaging winds, a little bit of hail, and the risk for tornadoes. We're also looking at an air quality issue with all that wildfire smoke still in the air, and we've got a tropical system that could form in the Gulf. There's a lot going on, so I'm not going to waste any time. Let's get right into the forecast. Jumping right into our day one categorical outlook, what you'll notice is that we only have a 1 out of 5 marginal risk in place, but it is going to include 3 different regions. So that's going to include western Montana and Idaho, the northern Midwest, and then another region all the way from the Ohio Valley back down through central Florida. The tornado risk for today is going to just include the northern Midwest, where we have a 2% in place from the UP of Michigan into northern Wisconsin and northeastern Minnesota. Wind is going to be the primary threat for today's severe weather setup, as every single zone is going to be included in a 5% risk for wind damage, every single zone that's within a marginal risk for severe weather anyway. And then for our hail risk, we're not going to be seeing any back in the Ohio Valley and down through central Florida outside of maybe some isolated, very small hailstones, nothing crazy, but up into the northern Midwest and then back towards western Montana and Idaho, we could definitely see a couple of storms produce some damaging hail. As we look ahead into Saturday this weekend, we are going to have a very large slight risk in place. This is when the weather is going to get a little more interesting, as you will see that yellow region all the way from Illinois back down through Pennsylvania, through New York, into the Northeast, and then even down through North Carolina, and then a larger marginal risk that is going to extend around that. And then we do have a little bit of a isolated risk for severe weather back into western Montana and Idaho as well. Saturday's severe weather risk will bring all hazards, including tornadoes, where we already have a day 2 5% outlook in place from close to Detroit into northeastern Ohio, all the way back through even New Jersey. So a pretty large area where we have a 5% risk in place, and then an even larger 2% risk that surrounds that, which will include Detroit, DC, and even New York City. Once again, wind damage is going to be the primary threat with Saturday, so we are going to have a 5% risk in western Montana and Idaho, but then a very, very significant region that is going to include all the way from Boston, even back close to St. Louis, clipping a part of Iowa even, including a 30% risk that you're seeing there in red for largely populated areas like DC and just to the west of New York City, including literally the entire state of Pennsylvania. On the other hand, though, hail is not expected to be a very significant factor. We could see some isolated hailstones back in that western Montana and Idaho region, and then we could see a couple isolated hailstones as these storms make their way off towards the coast, so towards areas like DC and just south of New York City, but hail is not really a significant concern for Saturday. And as we finish off the weekend with Sunday, we are going to have a large marginal risk in place all the way from the Carolinas back through even Tennessee, close to Nashville, and then a slight risk within that, including both the Carolinas and a part of Virginia. So off to the mid-Atlantic, some more strong storms expected the end of this weekend. We also have a marginal risk in place back into northern Minnesota and eastern North Dakota. That's going to be on Sunday as well. In terms of Sunday's probabilistic outlook, we're looking at a 5% up in Minnesota and eastern North Dakota, and then a large 5% with another 15% region embedded where you have that slight risk back through the Carolinas and Virginia. But as we roll into next week on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday, we have a 15% risk on our probabilistic long-term outlook for some severe weather. On day 4, which is Monday, we are looking at Iowa, Illinois, western Detroit, and the upper peninsula of Detroit, all of Wisconsin, and perhaps towards the Twin Cities of Minnesota as well, for that risk of severe weather. On Tuesday, we'll be looking back into the Ohio Valley and even into New York. And then here on Wednesday with this 15%, we're going to have back in the mid-Atlantic from North Carolina all the way up through Maryland, Delaware, and Jersey. Now, before we get into the timing of the severe weather coming up, I did just want to talk about the smoke, because all the way back from the East Coast, all the way up into Canada, I mean, we have all of this smoke that has just been causing all sorts of problems with the air quality in areas like Michigan, the Ohio Valley, West Virginia, even Pennsylvania and New York as well. But what you'll notice is that by Sunday, it looks like a lot of this is finally going to start to make its way on out of here. All that dust is going to be settling down, some of that ash leaving the atmosphere, and some of that upper flow and low level flow is going to guide a little bit of this smoke out of some of the areas that have been hit the hardest, like West Virginia and the Ohio Valley. And so as things move back off towards the Northeast, that smoke's going to begin to dissipate. So areas like New York won't be entirely out of the woods just yet, as you're going to see this smoke here as we roll through Saturday is going to begin to retreat towards areas like New York, but then it's going to kind of dissipate as it makes its way up through the northeast and then off out of New England. And then finally, there will be some relief by Sunday. All right, here we go with the timing of our severe weather. What you're going to notice today on Friday is that by the afternoon hours, we're seeing all those storms in our various highlighted regions of concern, but you're going to notice that we're going to have a line that's going to develop through the Upper Peninsula of New York, and that is what is going to bring that risk for those isolated strong to severe storms, where we could even see a couple of tornadoes in this region along that line. And then as we continue forward, that line is going to continue to progress on through and then into the overnight hours. By the early AM, it's all going to be dissipated, maybe some residual thunderstorms in various places around the United States, but that's going to take us right into Saturday. And as we roll through Saturday afternoon, you are going to see a large line of storms is going to start brewing all the way from Illinois, even maybe close to Davenport, Iowa, and then back up through New England. So just a very massive cold front driven by a upper level shortwave trough. So essentially what we're seeing here is just a giant line of storms that's going to push off through our region of concern for Saturday. And as these storms continue to push through, you're going to see by 7 p.m. here on Saturday, they've got that more organized line. I will say any storms that fire off ahead of this line and remain discrete could potentially pose a little bit of a tornado risk. And those are going to be some of the most concerning ones for any possible hail as well. But in general, hail is not really a big concern for tomorrow. The main risk is going to be wind damage with this line, plus the risk for widespread spin up tornadoes. So we could see a bunch of them really anywhere in the Ohio Valley and all the way back potentially even through New York. And that's why we have such a large 2% tornado risk and a large 5% tornado risk in place already for Saturday. I'm not expecting any tornadoes that do form to be particularly significant. However, you definitely can't rule one out entirely if a cell can remain discrete or semi-discrete just ahead of that line of main convection. And then as we continue forward through the evening here on Saturday, these storms will finally begin to dissipate into the overnight hours with some residual thunderstorms back through Kentucky and the Virginias. But in general, the severe threat will really start to fall off a cliff as we get towards like closer to midnight Eastern time. Another thing we have to pay close attention to is what's going on down in Florida in the Gulf, where we're having a little bit of a possible tropical disturbance forming here, where we might even see tropical cyclone development. Now, if anything forms, it would definitely be pretty low end, maybe a tropical depression or a very weak tropical storm, but it is regardless going to bring tons of rain to Florida, and that could produce a lot of widespread flooding in that region. So it's something to pay very close attention to if you are down there in Florida. So here's a look at that surface low over here that is going to be driving all of our severe weather, as it is just going to continue off along this path out through the Great Lakes region and then off towards New England, as we're going to see at the end of our forecast period. It is making its way up just into Quebec and into Maine. So that is what's going to be driving a lot of our weather and that cold front at the surface. And that surface low pressure system is going to be caused by our upper level flow, as we do have this ridge in place, but you're going to notice we're going to get a little bit of a shortwave embedded here as we roll into Saturday. You see this kink in the jet stream that's starting to form here. That is exactly what's going to bring that cold front at the surface and that low pressure system. As you can see, there you go. There's that shortwave trough that's going to be bringing all of our severe weather as we roll through Saturday. And that's exactly also why we're looking at a lot of upper level support with this system, where we could see increased wind shear and as a result, a more favorable environment for tornadoes, especially in the Ohio Valley and even back through Pennsylvania. Now, unfortunately, things will be a little bit muggy for a lot of us as we roll through this weekend, as you're going to see a lot of these purples and blues on the map throughout the central region of the country and then moving off towards the East Coast as we roll through Saturday and into Sunday. You're also going to see that cold front really starting to show up as we're looking at our dew points here, and all that surface moisture will be present. And again, that is going to help drive our severe weather, but it's also going to make things a little bit more sticky and a little bit less comfortable for folks who are out there, whether you're dealing with severe weather or not, as we roll through this weekend. We can also take a look at how much vorticity we have in the low levels. So just how much spin do we have at 850 millibars. Along this cold front this evening, what you'll notice is those values really start to spike in northern Wisconsin and into the UP of Michigan. But take a look at what happens by Saturday evening, as we're going to have tons of vorticity available, lots of energy in the atmosphere available to these storms, especially for Saturday afternoon and evening. And that's just going to continue to roll on through even into the overnight hours. This is by 1 a.m. Eastern time. You'll still see a lot of vorticity is present all the way back from the Ohio Valley, even towards maybe Indiana and Kentucky, and then back into New England. So a very, very expansive amount of vorticity available. And again, that's part of the reason we're going to have so many storms along this cold front. All right, next we're going to take a look at how much instability we're going to have present. You can see it by the time we roll into this evening. A lot of instability will be present along the initial cold front that's going to begin to form and bring the potential for a couple of tornadoes in the northern Midwest. We'll also have plenty of instability all the way back down through Florida in the Ohio Valley, where we're going to see a lot of pop-up storms. Even into the overnight hours, a lot of those storms could remain. This is by 1 a.m. Central Time here on Saturday. Still a lot of instability present in those regions. And then as we go forward in time, you can see that cold front really showing up with our instability clear as day as we get into the afternoon Saturday, and you'll start to see where that cold front is really set up. And along that forcing mechanism, which is our cold front, we don't need a ton of instability, but we do have it, which is why I am expecting a very, very long line of storms definitely going to be present. And I think that's why the models are showing that. I think it makes a lot of sense, and we're definitely going to see it, which is why wind is going to be such a significant threat and why hail won't be as much of a threat. And then also why tornadoes are going to be a threat, especially embedded along that line, but discrete supercells is not going to be our storm mode here. For the most part, at really any point during this entire event this weekend. So we're not going to be looking at a lot of potential for a strong tornado, but we will be looking at a lot of potential for a couple spin-up tornadoes, especially towards the Ohio Valley and into Pennsylvania. And that's going to bring us to the end of today's forecast video. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will be going live every single day for the Severe Weather Marathon, except Saturday, as I do have a prior commitment. But other than that, we'll be live every single day covering all the severe weather. So make sure that you're subscribed and have notifications turned on so that you don't miss anything. And you can stay weather aware as we have this marathon of severe weather rolling through this weekend and into next week. So again, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.